Hello, welcome to my channel. I am the goddess, and today we're going to talk about an experience that I had in the past. So this was around 2002. First of all, let me start by saying I'm channeling my mommy water energy, right? So it says being emotionally naked means being vulnerable enough for the real you to shine through. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Practice being transparent. Start with the people closest to you. Say, I haven't been showing you the whole me, but I am starting today. Have the courage to feel and express your feelings without people pleasing. Speak your truth, share your story, cultivate an appreciation for vulnerability in others. Become comfortable with feeling uncomfortable and making others uncomfortable. So the temple is the grill, the element is the water. Y'all excuse me for my stuffy nose. So and this might very well make people feel uncomfortable, what I'm about to tell you. This might make people feel like a little bit intimidated. But in 2002, I had an experience. I was in middle school at the time. I had just gotten out of school and I rode the bus home because I lived in the country. And so when you are away from city lights, you might experience things that people from the city never get to experience because the city lights are a distraction. Um, it distracts you from other things that are very well visible if they want to be visible. But if you choose to kind of like be of the world in the city, live a fast life, you're not paying attention to your surroundings, you may or may not ever get a chance to experience it. So I had just gotten off the school bus. I was walking home, and the way I lived in a brick house. So the way that the house was set up is you walk up the driveway, it's like a hedge of bushes that leads to the front door, and then it's like windows and everything, and bushes are the hedges are in front of the window, but it's like big windows. Older houses are more durable, they are more sustainable to weather, and they're more spacious versus, you know, the houses or apartments that are being built today. They're saving, more on time. They're saving on material, and that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so I walked into the door. We had a screen door, and my parent was still at work, and so 106 in Park was still popping. Popping mean it was still relevant. It was still airing on television, like new shows every day. And everybody used to watch 106 Apart, who was a millennial. And so my daily routine was to come home from school, clean up the house, cook dinner, then do my homework and wait for my parent to get home. So I like music. I enjoy music. I have a love for music. And I had the music turned up on the television. This was before flat screens were really even considered a thing. This was when we still had like the box TVs where there was like flat screens, but they sat on the ground and they had the wide back. right? So the music was up, and I was vacuuming. So the vacuum made a lot of noise, and that's the reason why I had the music turned up, is because I wanted to hear the music over the sound of the vacuum. And so the particular song that had just aired that day was Pharrell and Snoop Dogg. Beautiful, I just want you to know you're my favorite girl. Oh yeah, there's something about you. Beautiful. Right? They was in Brazil. They was like throwing up all type of signs and all this and that. But I really wasn't even paying attention to the signs. I was paying attention to the fact that the video was eye catching. And they were in a country where there's a lot of land and things like that. So as I'm vacuuming, I had this moment where I kind of tuned out. It was like there was a point in time where I heard the vacuum, I heard the music playing, I was vibing to the music, and then something came over me to where the arms of my hair raised up. The sound of the music, the vacuum, the refrigerator, like the sound of everything had went away for a brief second. And when the hairs on my arm stood up, I wasn't really wholeheartedly in tune with my body at the time, but something, my intuition told me something was off, because why did the noise go out, right? And so once I had this, you know, spirit of discernment that something was about to happen, the blinds were open, the windows were like wide, and I had the front door open because we had a screen door, right, to keep the mosquitoes out. And so I used my right arm to vacuum, so I had to turn to the right. The moment I turned to the right and I looked out the window from where I was standing, I came in contact with another life form. Now, when I describe to you this life form, you're going to be like, okay, nah, that couldn't have happened. But they depict it in movies all the time. This was before I even started watching movies about extraterrestrials. So I made eye contact with this other life form who stood about 6.5, maybe 7 feet. The circumference of his head, Lord, that was one of the scary. The circumference of his head was really huge from a human's head. And the skin was like pale gray, like a powder gray. It didn't have hair on his body. It had eyes like humans, but the sockets were bigger and they were slanted, like oriental looking. And it didn't have any white coloration around the pupil. It was just a pupil. But what was weird to me was it didn't have a nose. It just had 2 holes where the nose would be so it could breathe, and then it had really thin lips. It had a long neck and torso, wide shoulders, and to each human step, it could take like 2 to 3 steps. So how it takes a human maybe 5 seconds to walk past a window, within 2 seconds, in 2 steps, it had walked past the window. And the arms were so long, like how a human could have like arms where your hands reach to your knees, but this particular human life form had really long arms, as if the arms would like drag the ground, except it wasn't dragging the ground. And then it held its hand like this, like walking like it was cuffing its hand. So I froze, right? And I'm like, what was that I just came encounter with that was making the electronics in my home malfunction? And so I didn't even have time to record anything, but what I did do was I went and I slammed the door and locked the door, because I'm like, what you not finna do is think that you finna teleport up in here and get and snatch a girl up. That's what you wasn't finna do. Somebody had to be allowed to tell the story. So, and it was me. I was the only person that was there. So I ran to the window because like the couch sat in front of the window. So I jumped on the couch, and I definitely wasn't going to go outside to see where it had went. But I did kind of like press my face against the window, and I looked to the left to see, because we had a front yard and a backyard, and the house sat far back from the road, which is why we had the little driveway and the sidewalk that leads to the door. But as it walked and it looked at me, it proceeded to keep walking. And by the time I pressed my cheek against the window to look down to my left to see whether if it had went around my house or my neighbor's house, it was gone. Do you hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. It had disappeared. Now my first thing was, am I gonna die? Okay, because I had never seen anything like that in my life, and we're always exposed to movies where we're being told to stay away from these life forms, to run the other direction, and that they are very aggressive, and that they are here to kill you, and et cetera, et cetera. But my curiosity was like, okay, if these human life forms have the ability to practice telepathy, if they have the ability to cloak themselves and become invisible, why did it reveal itself that particular day? What was the reason? Why did it choose to expose itself to me? Was it because I was still innocent? Was it because, it wanted me to... Now, mind you, this was like well over, almost 20 years ago. But it took for today for me to tell what happened back then, just in case it might help somebody now or in the future, because my videos are timeless, right? And the thing about the video, Pharrell is a part of a group called the Neptunes, right? So the Neptunes were founded in 2002. He's always throwing up like little hand gestures that I feel like Pharrell knows something, but that's neither here nor there, because I don't really have the documentation to prove that. But the fact that that video was playing on the television while this experience was happening, and then he considers himself like he's not of this planet, he considers himself, I never heard him call himself or refer to himself as an alien, or another worldly being, but to refer to yourself as the Neptunes, and it's only 2 of them. Neptune in Latin means Poseidon. Poseidon is a water god in Greek mythology. Neptune, allegedly, is a water planet. And we can't, as human beings, feel like we're the only life force in a human form on this planet, or the fact that we feel like if other planets exist, which I'm quite sure that they do, but they're not in the forms of the image that we've been exposed to, there has to be life forms on other planets. We're not the only ones that live on a base, a dome, whatever you want to call it. But I do feel like the fact that there are more documentaries, there are more, articles that other life forms are revealing themselves, that's not coincidental. They used to hide themselves in a sense or cloak themselves. Now it's like more so out in the open, whether if you believe it or not. Another experience that I had, I lived in the country again. And I was traveling from the country to the city to work in the medical field, and I had to get my children ready for school and daycare at the time. And so I would get up at like 5:30 in the morning and put them in the car, put their seatbelts on. My oldest son looked in the sky because it was still dark, but it was early in the morning, and he was like, "Mom, what's that?" And when I looked up in the sky, it almost put you in mind of how they depict Santa Claus and the reindeers, where he's like on this sleigh and he's riding the sleigh with the reindeers and they're like going across the sky. But from the ground, you don't see Santa Claus and the reindeers with the sleigh. You see like a bunch of stars trailing across, right? With the jingles and stuff like that. This particular morning, there was a train. It was like a bunch of dots that looked like stars that were blinking. Some were moving faster than others, but they were moving in a straight line, one behind the next, like follow the leader type thing. And they were going somewhere that I did not know where they were going at the time, nor do I know now where they were going. But it was a lot of them. And they were trailing behind the next. And they were really articulate about how they were transporting themselves. There was no, it wasn't unorganized. It was very strategic. And I was like, well, dang, why are they doing this 5 a.m. in the morning? Or, around this time between 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. is because majority of the population are asleep. And then when we wake up and start our day, we never look up in the sky. We always in our phone. We checking the time. We on Facebook. We on social media. We on different platforms. When we start our day, we never take the time. When I say we as a collective, rarely take the time to look up in the sky and appreciate what's above our head. So it's easy for them to travel. It's like, well, y'all ain't looking up anyway. Y'all are sucked into the phone. You glued into a device, electronic device, that we can malfunction at any time, but we choose to let y'all continue to live the life that y'all living until it comes that point in time where we say, hey, there's a breach in the matrix, and now is the time for you to be exposed to this. A lot of the times in these movies, certain people put certain things in movies so that we're more comfortable with certain topics because we look at it as entertainment, when a lot of the times they put the truth in your face. And we feel like, oh, it's not real. It's giving very much Steven Spielberg or, sci-fi and things like that. But where are they getting these ideas from? That's what you have to ask yourself. Why are so many movies replicating the same idea, the same plot summary that's been going on since the beginning of time, throughout history? The Aztecs, the Incas, the Egyptians, even in Chinese history, throughout history everywhere, you have repetitive, whether if it's hieroglyphics, whether if it's drawings, whether if it's templates, whether if it's documentation in some shape, form, or fashion, even in art, they contact the civilization. They're the reason why human civilization advance has the opportunity to advance in the way that it does. So with that being said, pay attention to your surroundings, because it's not a game out here. It took me 20 years to really share this experience, and it wasn't easy. Like, I'm getting chills right now just reliving that moment. And it didn't traumatize me, but it made me realize that life that I knew had changed from that day forward. It wasn't just, you know, what I was taught. We're also taught about what we're exposed to. And I don't have hallucinations, no mental illnesses, you know, none of the above, to where it should be second guessed. But I asked Spirit, could I speak on it? Spirit said yes, and that was that. I work for God. I don't work for nobody else. God, the divine most high, the Alpha, the Omega, the big dog, the head honcho. So yeah, and I'll be back with a live reading shortly. I just wanted to make this separate from that because this is a completely different topic where I'm more serious, and Spirit wanted me to share it, so it is so. Shall it be? Ashe.